Hello guys, welcome back to the Middle-earth strategy battle game at university. Class is in session and today's lesson will focus on the basics of the combat phase, or it's also known as the fight phase. Many a legendary battle is won or lost through the thematic epic clashes that pit good against evil, sometimes even evil against evil. It depends on how you're feeling on the day. And today I'm going to be explaining to you how to resolve the combat phase, which is the third and final main segment which make up the whole encompassing turn. So each model that has ended the movement and shooting phase and is in base-to-base contact with another model is considered to be engaged with and then fighting the other model during the combat phase. Now, fights are resolved one at a time, and the order is dictated by the player with priority, so they have a little bit of a leg up as they can decide which way around they want to do the combats, if there's any particular key combats they want to do first. Generally speaking, though, you'll probably find that between you and your opponent, you've just agreed to work your way from left to right. It's certainly what I do whenever I play, because it's just a lot easier. Unless there's anything key that needs to be sorted out beforehand, we generally just tend to work from one end of the board to the other. Heroic actions do intervene sometimes with this order of combat priority, but again, that's something I will go into in a later video when we explore all the heroic actions. Now, resolving a fight is broken down into 4 separate stages. Firstly, both players make a duel roll with whatever characters or units are engaged and currently fighting. To see who wins the fight, both players roll a dice equal to the number of attacks the model or models have on their stat line under the A, the attacks characteristic. For example here, our Rohan warrior has 1 attack. This Uruk-hai also has 1 attack, so both players will roll 1 dice each. It's very common for models, particularly heroes, to have more than 1 attack. If this is the case, simply roll the number of dice shown on their stat line. For example here, this Uruk-hai berserker has 2 underneath his attacks characteristic, so every time he's involved in a fight he will roll 2 dice rather than the standard Uruk's 1. And it's simply the player who rolls the highest number over all these dice rolls who has run the duel. If a duel roll is tied, players must then compare their respective fight values of the models involved. Whichever one has the highest fight value is considered to be the better fighter and takes the win. Sometimes you'll have characters involved who have different fight values. At this point you go with the model again who has the highest fight value involved in the fight. For example, our brave Rohan warrior and our vile Uruk-hai warrior have both rolled a 4 to see who wins the fight. As it stands at the moment they are drawn, there are no additional modifiers to change these dice rolls at all, no banners, no might points, nothing like that. So now we have to compare their fight values based on their stat line, and we're looking at the first figure under the fight value characteristic. As you can see, our Rohan warrior has a fight value of 3, where our Uruk-hai warrior has a stalwart fight value of 4, meaning he is the better fighter and will unfortunately take the win over the Rohan warrior in this fight. Once the winner has been decided, the losing player's model or models must all back away from their opponent 1 full inch in a straight line. Any model that cannot back away for whatever reason is considered to be trapped. Note, a model cannot be forced to cross an obstacle or take a leap or a jump test as a result of backing away, but they can be pushed off an elevated area if there's nowhere else for them to go. Sometimes other models may be in the way of a model that needs to back away. If this happens, one interceding model will make way up to 1 inch for the retreating model to try and give it room to back away. Now, only one model can do this, however, and it cannot be done if they're in combat, would end in base contact with another enemy model, or put the model in harm's way via any obstacle or jump test. So you Uruk-hai players, you've got to be super careful out there with your phalanxes. It's very easy to get pikemen trapped. Trust me. Once the winner has been decided and the loser has backed away their full inch, the winning model must make strikes to try and wound their foe. Rolling the same number of dice under their attacks characteristic, the attacking model compares its strength to the opponent's defense value and cross-references this on the wound chart. Any of the dice rolled here will need to roll the corresponding number in order to cause a successful wound. Again, using our example of our Uruk-hai who has won the fight over our Rohan warrior, the Uruk-hai's strength is 4 and the warrior of Rohan's defense with a shield is 5. So as you can see, by cross-referencing the Uruk-hai's strength and the Rohan warrior's defense, we can see that the Uruk-hai just needs to roll a 5 in order to cause a wound to our poor Rohan warrior. Trapped or prone models will double the amount of attacks rolled to try and inflict wounds on models. Now, generally speaking, you want to try and break down the combats into as many separate one-on-one combats as possible. Sometimes this will be unavoidable and you'll have multiple models fighting one defender. In these instances, you simply follow the same method as fighting normally, but comparing the different model stat values if they happen to not all be the same. If a model wins a fight against 2 or more opponents, then all enemy models must back away, not just one. The defender isn't able to potentially wound any of the other models it was engaged with in the fight. And finally, any models that are reduced to 0 wounds at the end of the fight phase are considered casualties and removed from the table. Some things to note here. If a model has been knocked prone before the fight phase and are fighting from a position of lying on the floor, if that model wins the fight, it does not get the chance to strike blows against its opponent. The opponent will back away the full inch as is standard, and the model will simply return to a standing position and no longer be prone, rather than striking blows. He's too focused on getting back up on his own feet. There are various effects and special rules based on certain types of model types and infantry and model characteristics that provide multitudes of bonuses to the combat phase. This is the very basic overview of looking at combat and just the very basic rundown of how a combat fight phase works. We will be going into all the minutiae, all the detail, all the cavalry tactics, all the monstrous charges, all the brutal power attacks, defended positions, barriers, ledges and hedges, strikes over barriers and defended positions and fortifications in future videos. Don't worry, I will have you all covered. Everything will be covered in all sorts of detail. Well, I really hope you guys have enjoyed class today. I hope this has given you a brief insight and a brief explanation as to how the combat phase basics work in A Turn of Middle-earth. We'll be back with another lesson very, very soon. But until then, guys, take care, happy hobbying, and class dismissed.